conversational piece, then I think the audience's input is as valuable as whatever you're talking about with the parapets. The other meeting would be when you're gonna be actually to the point of voting, right? So your minds are already made up what you're doing, no matter, well, to the point that most of the board would probably say yes on any point.
The work session purpose is strictly that, just to, for example, there was one applicant here that we have to discuss the issue of variances, the second one came in as a pre-application meeting. The board is simply just having a discussion and or presentation. The formal meeting where, if there was to be a public hearing or if there was to be a vote, would be at the second meeting of the month.
And you allow public comment at the regular meeting?
Correct.
But again, I think the horse is already out of the barn if there's comments and things that need to be discussed.
I think it's pretty common practice that the work session doesn't typically allow public comment. For the purposes of, we're here to just have a work session and the regular meeting is
It's the
for.
same with a town work session or a village work session.
It's
Well,
very
I
common.
can present the town that we allow comments at work sessions, because if the conversation is about X, that's when we want the input, so we have time to digest it before we go into a regular meeting where it's normally presented as a resolution to move on to the next step. So I'm just looking at it, maybe I'm just looking at it differently, but it doesn't make much sense for me to plead my case at a regular meeting when you guys are ready to vote on it. Just my logic, maybe.
Well, today's work session is basically just thinking about what's about to happen. Nothing's been put on.
No, agreed, and I agree with you. I just
No
think,
laws have been
And
made.
certainly nothing is close to a vote, so.
no, I get it too, I get that.
It's basically sorry. Everything's just preliminary.
Right.
We're
Thank you.
discussing what could possibly happen. When they do come back, that's when we can discuss what your comments are, whatever, you have any problems with or
Mhm.
issues.
Yeah, thank you.
And again, that's when the law will go into effect then. So right now, nothing's been put. It's just basically referring somebody, telling them, okay, let's see the plans then, and that's when we'll discuss what next steps will be.
Thank you.
No, of course, thank you.
So my question to the board is that I don't believe there's anything submitted, well, actually, there might be one application for the regular meeting for November. But our regular meeting for November would fall on Thanksgiving, so just wanted to present to the board whether you would like to notice for a new earlier meeting, or would you just like to eliminate the second meeting in November and go to the work session in December?
When would the one in December be? Would that be,
That one would be
another good question, would it be
the
Christmas?
third. No, oh yeah, that would
Because
be,
we're basically in the holiday season.
right, it
so
wouldn't be
it's
until the
about-
10th.
Right.
So the boards, you can at this point, we're early on enough, that we can notice and publish in the, publish a alternative date, if that's what the board chooses. I don't know what your schedules are like.
We have something on here.
There was yes, one of the applicants came back with comments from the DEC, and they were looking to be put back on the agenda, but I haven't given a date because obviously we're not going to be meeting on Thanksgiving.
I gave it to them on the 10th,
For the work,
December.
for a workshop,
Yeah,
that's 36.
the 10th, yeah, the 30
Yeah.
36 North Street.
Right.
I mean, I'm
Do they need a decision made, or is that just part of?
Nope, they're just coming back. The DEC gave comments back to John and I.
Yeah, they said it's okay to build on it, there's no special permits needed or anything.
And they were fine with the 10?
Yes, yeah.
I haven't spoken directly to the applicants. He did, the engineer gave me a call and I called him back and we just haven't touched base yet, so.
Actually, let me correct myself on that. I told them we're putting them on the 10th, and I haven't said no, so I can check with them tomorrow. That's a good point.
Depending on the urgency, if they definitely want us back, I'm okay. Again, it's up to the rest of the members. I'm okay for a meeting that's earlier, just so we can get the ball rolling for them. But if it's nothing urgent,
Okay, go
They're
ahead.
still very, very early on in the application process, so, it's completely up to the board.
I mean, if you told them the 10th, you let them
Well, that's
know.
36 North Street.
Right.
That's what
Okay,
it's
oh,
like.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
that's fine.
Okay.
So we're going to eliminate the second meeting for November. And then, also for the board to consider, the second meeting in December is Christmas Eve. So, I would suggest considering a second meeting in December, because I'm sure there will, there's some applications coming back.
We have a few on the pipeline, right?
We
So I
do have a
think
few of
that
those.
would
So
be
why
fine.
don't we do the 3rd and then the 17th?
Yeah.
So you make everybody happy.
Well, the 10th is the workshop already on the calendar, and the 17th could be a
Yeah,
regular.
we do 10th and
You
17th.
could do, or you could do, yeah, you could do the 10th, so nothing wrong with two weeks in a
Back-to-back
row.
weeks,
Yeah.
okay.
So the 10th and the 17th?
Show December.
So I will,
Shall we vote?
yes, please vote on it, and I will draft a notice to be published.
All right, so I can call, so we can call a motion to set the dates for the next work session, December 10th, and then an earlier one on December 17th.
Next city of
A
Maine.
regular meeting.
A regular meeting, planning board meeting on December 17th.
I'll make a motion.
Portman.
Ms. Roper, anybody second?
Portman.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye. Okay. All right, so lastly, I would like to make a motion for an executive meeting.
Do you need to confer with council?
It's basically the zoning.
That's public discussion.
That's public discussion, so no need for an executive meeting.
Nope, unless you just need to specifically discuss with me something that you fear might bring litigation.
Basically the same thing that we had discussed last.
Yeah, That's good for public, it has to be public knowledge.
And I understand you also wanted to talk about the fencing, which is also considered the zoning, correct? You said the same thing last
I
night.
had something, it's not major, it's minor.
Okay,
Uh,
so,
I'll go get it. All right, so I think you're ready.
all right, so you want to just wrap that up. It's basically the permitted uses that we had discussions last time about the single-family dwelling.
The OR district?
Yes.
Honestly, mostly, almost all the districts, because this was a good example here with that first applicant, how the zone will allow him to do things that are not within his zone, because the permitted use says he can go and just look at another zone and say, I choose, I want to be in this zone now.
Mhm. I mean, I know it's erected on the law, and it's one of those things where it's like, that'll take forever to change, right? But it's
Well-
very, it's not clear. And
The
that's why
prob-
we're going back and forth with this, and every time we have somebody who sends in an application, like you said, they'll just pick a zone, depending on what favors them and what wording, because of the S or the no
Yeah, yeah.
S, right?
You're talking about the plural. So the,
In general, there's a
the,
lot of wording issues in there.
the portion of the zone that says the singular versus the plural, that is not meant for material terms. As it was, that's not the purpose of it. The permitted uses are to be interpreted as they are written. So, single-family home, you will see in certain districts, it does have residential units.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So, like, I think it's the, mobile, maybe there's,
It's interesting, I went up and down, we're talking about this particular zone. I went up and down the street and went to the assessor's record and everything, almost everything is perfect with the zoning that we're talking about there. You know, a lot of residential, or,
the OR district.
I just think it come except for a few exceptions, like a bank. It's basically either office building or apartment over office building, converted residence, that's pretty much what it all looks like. With that, you don't see any more than two buildings, you only see one building, except for two properties, I believe, which had grandfathered buildings from early 1900s and 1880s, which had those double buildings, but aside from that, anything more modern was a single building, that was it. You can drive up and down and see it. Pretty right on the money on the road, pretty much.
Because in Mr. Brian Gibson's case, as far as that building office, remember he had two separate buildings. And for the lower level to be like one large office because of the fact that you interpret it one way and he interpreted it as just an office use of the space. So that, might come up again when we have somebody else coming up to the board.
Which one was this?
Mr. Gibson for, I think that was 61 East Main.
Oh, yeah, the 61, yeah,
So, I don't wanna talk about a particular applicant, but I think, I don't wanna talk, so if you wanna talk broadly about the district.
Yeah, I would just like to talk broadly about
Yeah,
specific codes and stuff, like for instance, RA or R100. A lot of these have, under special exemption uses, just a whole plethora. I mean, as you said, it's very confusing because you just go through and there's another special exemption, another one. You can build this here if you feel like you're that there, or as for instance, oh, if it's an R this, you can change it to R that. Why is there so many exceptional uses within the code? I think those should be just whoop, taken right out.
Well,
And if someone has an issue, let's say, for instance, this person, they can just go straight to ZBA rather than saying, well, the exemption says that I can build for instance, in this one code, I can build a hospital. You know, it's like, it's very strange how there's so many special exemption uses underneath every single code, which pretty much, why is there a code then? If the special
Well,
exceptions say you can build whatever you feel.
the special exception uses are, it's not abnormal at all for a district to have several special exception uses, because that allows the applicant to come before the planning board and gives the local municipality more, input into how that site plan is gonna be developed, and a special exception use permit has also additional special requirements in the code.
Right.
Without the special exception uses being listed in the district, the only way they could get a use that's not listed in the code is with a use variance, which is a very, very, very difficult standard to meet, and very, very, I would say it's rarely granted. So the special exception use allows applicants, both residential and commercial, more flexibility in terms of what their property can do if they meet certain additional requirements in the code. Not abnormal at all, especially gives them, allows for a more rich, diverse district, because a use variance wouldn't be, it's not the best avenue to go for use purposes, if that makes sense.
Can I elaborate a little bit on that, if it's all right?
Sure.
Like an R100 district for a single-family house, for example. Okay, it says you can go with the RA, but then it doubles up on square footage of the lot, it doubles up on lines, it doubles up on frontage, so you have a much larger platform for a two-family house. So there are exceptions, but they have to be adhered to be fair to everybody.
So it seems like a lot of these codes are like preliminary and general in a sense. So then from there, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, that's when you'll refer them to the ZBA, it seems, for variances. For them to get variances.
Unless they meet all the bulk requirements.
Mhm.
The only time you need to go to the ZBA is if you're seeking something that's not, the code is to be interpreted strictly as written.
Mhm.
Outside of that, meaning if you're, for example, having a 19,000 square foot lot, have a good evening,
Thank you.
19,000 square foot lot where 40,000 is required, in
Right.
order for you to be allowed that, the only way to do it is to get an area variance from the zoning board of appeals. That's the ZBA's total purpose, is to allow and some type of relief to a strict adherence to the code.
Sounds good, sounds good.
Does that
It's like
mean
an
it'll
extra
go to the ZBA?
Hmm?
Is that first thing on the agenda going to go to the ZBA?
If the board voted for them to be referred to the ZBA.
Also, one quick question. None of your names are on the website for the planning board, okay? They have the old people, and I think it'd be a good idea to at least put that information down there, because nobody knows who's anything at this point in time.
It is
That's
unfortunately, I don't
ridiculous.
on the website.
I don't know, how long have you been planning board?
Not that long.
They're newly convened, but thank you for.
I'm saying if it's more than 2 weeks, actually, it is long. They also don't have it updated for the zoning board. They still have Harry.
Yeah.
Okay? So something's got to be done about
I
that,
appreciate
without a
that.
doubt.
Yeah.
And other than that, that's all my
It has,
questions. Nice to meet you.
Nice.
if I can address that, it has been reported to the webmaster, okay?
Yeah,
Who's
it's
on
got-
the planning board, their names,
It's got to be done.
the zoning
I had
board,
no idea.
that's okay. But in the
Okay.
post, the other day, the Facebook post, you said the village board was the planning board. So it wasn't, and we haven't been. That's all I got to say. Have a good night.
All right.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you.
Mr.
Great
Mayor.
board, really.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, though.
Thank you, we'll be taking care of that.
Excuse me. Can I address the planning board now? I'm a former building inspector from here, former Superintendent of Public Works?
Sir, unfortunately, tonight is a work session, so there's no public comment.
Oh, okay.
We would like to invite you back to, so the board had, so there's not a November meeting because it falls on Thanksgiving, but the board would like to invite you back to our next.
Well, the only thing I was going to suggest to the board, when I was the building inspector, I suggested to the board, and I realize it's not a comment, is that to have a master list. So when the applicant comes back here, they're not coming back here 10 times. They come back here and they have a list, what they need to bring to the planning board. So the cost to the applicant isn't a lot of money. In other words, I've seen it when I was a building inspector. The engineer would say, oh, you gotta do this, this, and this to come back. And then when he comes, but the applicant comes back, the engineer just added 5 more things to that poor person. So it just prolongs the whole system. That's what I'm saying. I realize you're not supposed to make a public comment, and that's the reason why I waited till everyone leaves. Just a suggestion to help things get moved along. I mean, here I listened to these gentlemen here talking about the bagel shop. So if they have a master list of what they need to do, then the process moves along.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, there's certainly a process and there's many rounds of technical comments. That's just the name of the game, but thank you very much.
Okay? Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great
Good
evening.
night.
Take care, John.
Take care.
So in terms of recommending changes to the code, are there specific things that you've seen that you would want me to draft a letter to the village board? Well, I guess the chairwoman could draft.
I think a big one is, for example, tonight, where a single-family zone, all the way down the exemptions, allows you to go to, what is it, I think RA allows you to go to R100, or is it the opposite? R100?
Opposite.
Okay, yes, a zone made on purpose just to be a normal suburban zone has an exemption where it allows you to start making in apartments, and I think that'll start becoming an issue because I live in this village, I live in an area where it's all just normal homes. If I knew I could just make my home a 2-family apartment and make extra money, I would in a heartbeat. But I don't want every single home in my neighborhood now being apartment, 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 apartment.
I think we've got to be careful not to set a precedent. Because if you make too many exceptions, then you'd be discriminating against other people with similar properties that want the same thing. So be careful with that.
That's my big things. I don't, the zone, if it was let's say that was an RA zone, for any, I'm not saying just for that case specific, I'm saying for any case, then go ahead, go by the rules of an RA zone. But why should the rules of the R100 zone also apply to the rules of the RA zone? And I'm not sure if there's any other zones that have the same kind of issue. I don't know what the 100% updated exemption list is for all the different zones. But if I'm going through exemptions and I find, oh, this one, let's say the manufacturing or mobile home zone has an exemption to allow another zone, et cetera, it's kind of defeats the
Oh, I
point
see
of
what
having
you're saying.
zones
Yeah,
for certain
yeah.
areas,
You can't do that. No.
It's really, it's because.
But I understand that you said the other exemptions, for instance, like some of them say like, bank or hotel, et cetera, but for it to say exactly like a whole other zone, because they obviously worked very hard to map out the village and where they want each zone to exactly be, it just confused me on why that exemption would be there, because I've noticed it in a certain area where I drive through and I see, why is there a row of row houses here? I look at the zone 100 times and it never says that. And I'm like, oh wait, if you go to that exemption, which tells you to go here, it allows you to do that. It's like, it's very strange, Because you also have a row houses in the whole area where it's all just, normal houses because of that one little clause.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that's still on or not.
I think it is.
Okay,
Is that recording to Facebook?
Yes.
yes. But there's
No,
this,
but this is required for open
Yes.
discussion, so.
it's just very strange to see, something like that.
It seems a little tricky to
Yeah.
write up, so, you know what I mean? We understand what you're trying to say, it's just for the purposes of writing, like you said, some sort of a.
Yeah, so So to be quite honest, that's more of like a legislative,
Yeah.
that's more of a village board determination. That would be something I would say you would bring, you know, as a public comment in a village board meeting. As the planning board, if there was something technical that didn't make sense, for example, the singular and plural, that I think is an appropriate thing for the planning board to comment on. The other thing was, you know, what's allowed in the zone was something that must have gone through when the village board did, you know, the zoning update. I don't know if they're doing one recently, I think they just did one.
Yeah, my only concern would just be the R100 exemption that allows you any permitted within RA. That's it, that's just my only concern as of now.
That one doesn't really bother me too much, because again, it's making it difficult, because it's twice the size of the lot. The frontage has to be huge, the setbacks have to be doubled and everything. That one doesn't bother me too much, because it's putting it in that RA category, so to speak, even though it may be in the R100. So it's very difficult requirements to get it done. So that one kind of makes a little sense.
That's true, it does make it much stricter. It's not like it's allowing a two-family house on a one-family house-sized lot.
Exactly,
It really is
yeah.
So
truly
it
doubling
does
everything.
change, so it
That
does
was a
change
problem.
the requirements for a set frontage and lot size, et cetera.
Yep, so in an R100 zone, you need 20,000 square feet.
Right. And
Um,
RA
but now-
is
but-
40.
But now RA is 40,000.
Right.
50 for both side yards, 100 is required now. I'm not gonna comment on the applicant, but,
Well, additional parking, additional space for develop, two apartments rather than one. It's all there, it accounts for it. Whether you grant it or not, because there's so many variances there, but
well, that's
at least it makes sense, the way they've got it. It's not just a clause, it gives you all these different things that you gotta
Okay,
really.
so
your
set
pathway is-
rules to not
And
just.
when we, you know, when you do the SEQA review, you know, character of the neighborhood is something that you will have to use your discretion on, with the understanding that there are certain things that are permitted in the code, and that's why the code is written, and that's what you must operate within.
Good to know, at least there's some backer for each one, we can't just easily.
Oh, of course.
something
No,
yeah,
it's definitely a problem, yeah.
Difficult, you're on the hot seat.
And did you want to briefly just mention that fencing, or? wait
Oh,
till
the
next?
fencing thing,
I think that's more for the village board,
okay, we'll talk about this one, all
I
right,
think
but that's not that urgent, so
That's
we'll,
not-
okay,
Perfect,
because it's not
so
allowed before then.
okay. all right,
there's nothing
okay.
else additional, I'd like to call the meeting to order. If somebody will give a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Rowe for a second.
No, second motion.
Call the roll. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 8:02 PM. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
Thank
night.
you.
Good job, guys.
Who shut your camera?
Trustee Kalor.
Oh, you did it, okay.
Should be the big fat button on the right.
Big?